We're going to look at the art of Edvard Munch, who was a Norwegian painter who did a lot of famous psychological and really emotional paintings. He really had a really original, defined style. And you see in a lot of his work these motifs of love and death and loneliness. He had a really tough childhood where he had, a lot of death and loss. And he had a family with a lot of mental health challenges running through it. And he himself wound up, I think, for a year, a little less than a year, living in an institution. And you can see the emotional work, the emotional approach to his work, and what an outlet it probably was for him. And he captured these just really, this is him also, um, isolated people. Another thing you see in his work is distortion of space and, um, you know, like the hair and the trees and the rocks and everything is kind of in this very psychological way, almost like the distortion of his brain is then impacted in the painting. And same with the color. These wild, like the red and green faces, very expressionist, much more like worried about, the color of this death bedroom. Here's that like a happier man on the beach, and then we kind of flip it into this blue palette, and it turned actually very much more sad. He often repeated places in his work, like this pier, and it kind of almost felt sometimes like a stage to me, like it was a stage for him. Or the rocks on the coast with the sun setting. These, repeated motifs and places and stuff is really interesting in terms of your own work. If you have something you really want to focus on, repeating a place is a really, really great way to be able to focus on other things like color and mood and light. And he, did some really beautiful figures. And I especially love his human interaction because sometimes there's tension, sometimes they're just, I love like these three girls so closely together, so intimate. I love how he has people turned away, facing. I love when he does it a lot. This like one person is away from the group and looking out at the viewer, or these the kind of sense of people looking in on something. He did beautiful things with light, Norwegian light, and also this stark, dramatic, scary light. So maybe if you are approaching monk style painting, maybe that's what you want to work on. You want to find an image of somebody in that kind of light, a beach, and then you can double up. You can do the palette, the distortion, and then he does these great compositions where there's often someone almost like walking out at the viewer, extreme close foregrounds, even like this fruit tree and these logs coming out at us, and the scream, obviously, if you think of the scream, that person is right up in our face. And when you give us these like figures coming at us, it's really impactful. I love his landscapes. I think, again, we see the palette, the very kind of sad palette, often towards the end of his life. I think it got a little bit brighter. He kind of did some more flowers and stuff. But we see the distortion again. We see the use of light. We kind of see this, even the island is isolated. That single tree is isolated. There's like such a loneliness, sorry, in his work, even when he's just doing a simple landscape. These winter ones especially are really beautiful. So maybe you'd want to do a winter landscape with these blues, these very cool blues and pinks and muted pinks. He was a really big influence on a lot of people. The Expressionists, obviously, he influenced Francis Bacon, which you can see so much of this in some of his earlier work, even the distortion, the melancholy. Peter Doge is all sorts of influence in him. You can see it in the distortion of the trees and the reflections of the water, the solitary person. Yeah, just to me, and I was looking to see if I could find like proof that he was influenced, and I started to do that, and I forgot. But I will double back. But I'm pretty sure that he would quote Monk as one of the influences. Tracy Emin did a whole show with Munch. I think it was Royal Academy Arts, because she was really influenced by his. This really, the distortion, the surrealist really went deep in some of the distortions. The expressionists like Kirchner. You can see so much influence, even like that grouping of people. Um, Ernst was influenced. Yeah, so he was very important. So what we're going to do is you are going to paint a figure, a landscape, whatever you want. I started with this image of August in Times Square, and I wanted to drop her into a melancholy world. So I first started with the distortion, actually, and I kind of just started painting these lines here and there around the world she was standing in. I played with her skin tone to make it a little more psychological. I started darkening up the background, kind of change the cars and buildings into trees and stones and a river. And then I stressed the sun. And I think I'll go back in and keep distorting, but that's where I started. So I think I want you to take a modern image that you have of your life, and we're going to play with motifs, and colors and distortion and a cool composition. Okay, bye.